I'm Laverne Wilson. This year is the 15th annual Urbanworld Film Festival. Our opening night film is the world premiere of Brooklyn, Boheme by the filmmaker Nelson George, also featuring Spike Lee, Branford Marsalis, and other prominent figures of the exciting art movement of Fort Greene, Brooklyn.
Wow, there's a place in Brooklyn where black people live and it's nice. Man, I was around a lot of artists. You and Bill Stephanie's and Spikes and Lisa Jones, right. Just like all these people. Everybody was like the snobbiest people you ever want to meet. Like, I'd never been around like black snobs before.
So my question for you is, what is a Brooklyn Boheme, and are you one of them?
No, I'm not a Brooklyn Boheme, but I imagine it's a person who lives in Brooklyn who has watched it change over the years. I was just thinking about how I went to Cobble Hill recently, and it was completely gentrified with just really nice restaurants and nice places to, sit and talk and do different things, but very, very different in soulfulness than what I experienced when I was in Brooklyn doing Do the Right Thing. So I imagine it's somewhat of an issue for folks who live there, changing culturally, changing in terms of its gentrification, and could be good, could be bad. So we'll see what the film has to say about it tonight.
We had energy, we had vision, and we did not want to go for the status quo.
My name is Nelson George. I'm a director, a writer, and a historian. And I've lived in Fort Greene, Brooklyn for over 25 years, and I still live here. I was fortunate in the 80s and 90s to be part of a community of young black and Hispanic artists who innovated in film, music, literature, art, and spoken word. I'm going to walk around Fort Greene and Clinton Hill next door and talk with folks about what magic happened here in these streets, why it happened in Brooklyn, why it ended. Perhaps for me to figure out why I'm still here.
Nelson George and Diane Paragas, the
Nice.
co-director. It's such a pleasure to meet you. I'm Laverne Wilson. This is really exciting to have your film here the opening night. I'd like to know, what was the tipping point that made you decide to tell this particular story about Fort Greene, Brooklyn?
I did a book about 3-4 years ago now called City Kid, which was a memoir about growing up in Brooklyn. And there's a couple of chapters in the book that deal with Fort Greene. And then I met Diane, and I had been working, we'd worked on American Gangster when I was producing that for BET. And I just said, I should just go ahead and make this. And go ahead and talk to all the people I know. Everyone's my friend. A lot of them who still live in the area or come through. And we basically just, sometime after that, got together and decided to make the film. So that was 2009?
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago. It was about 2 years ago, so it was awesome. I mean, for me, being outside that community, it just seemed like the coolest time to be anybody, an artist, a filmmaker, was in Brooklyn with these guys back in the day. So to be able to tell that story and go on this journey with Nelson has been amazing, a dream come true.
What is it about that time in Fort Greene that is the essence of this documentary?
Community. That would be, what's really interesting when I look back is how many people were connected to each other via friendship that led to work or led to collaboration, and you really can you can always take arrows and go from person to person. With Spike maybe is one of the key spokes, and then maybe the is a spoke, and then seeing how these people from Vernon Reid to Branford Marsalis to for example, Fight the Power. Everyone thinks Fight the Power is Public Enemy, but Vernon, and they were very big influence on Public Enemy, Living Color. They're kind of rock and roll. Branford plays on that record. Spike brought the script to Bill by riding his bike to his house. So it was very much a community thing that became, what's really interesting is a community thing that becomes a global thing, which is really unusual. And for so many artists to come out of this one or two areas, community, and make art that then has a global impact is quite extraordinary.
Then let's talk about Nelson for a moment. What about Nelson George and his legacy as a filmmaker? Would you like to speak about that?
Oh, Nelson's a great friend. He was one of the original investors, and she's got to have it. I've known Nelson a long time, and we both support each other throughout the years.
All right. Well, since it looks like there's a lot of gentrification going on in Brooklyn, where do you think Black Bohemia is going?
Well, the gentrification continues at the same pace, Look at Harlem. Look at Bed-Stuy. Look at Fort Greene. Look at Clinton Hill.
So where do we go? How do we find each other?
Moving down. You didn't read the paper? New York Times, like 3 weeks ago. The black population in New York is going down. Black folks are moving back down south.
So where do you think the next black mecca for arts will be?
I don't know.
I know you got a lot of love for Brooklyn, but since we're losing Fort Greene, where do you think the next black bohemia is going to be?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think we're losing Fort Greene. There's a lot of black people in Fort Greene. This is white people too. Harlem seems to be on the come up. So we'll see.
I hear after 25 years, though, you're leaving Fort Greene?
No.
So that rumor is untrue.
Yes.
So my final question is there still a Brooklyn Boheme, or is Black Bohemia going elsewhere?
Yeah, it's going to Bed-Stuy. Bed-Stuy is what's happening. That there's so many young artists there. What's interesting though, it's not a black. What you're seeing in Bed-Stuy is you're seeing artists of all kinds move there. It's interesting. Like there's a lot of young Asian musicians and friends of mine who live there. There's a lot of younger white artists. So Brooklyn has, and so there's a lot of collaborations going that way. It's not so much race as class in a way that's going on. So I mean, Brooklyn, obviously, what's going on in Williamsburg and Bushwick has become a hot area. So the desire for artists to have space to create doesn't go away. It's the economics that drive them places. Fort Greene was created by the fact that the beautiful brownstones that were abandoned by white homeowners, quite honestly. And I lived in a duplex with wood floors and a backyard and a marble staircase in 1985 for like no money. Now I couldn't afford the same place. That's what's happened. But the artists helped drive the energy around it.